They do it on target. They do it on target.
Minneapolis. Hey, don't stand up. Where are there 40? Hey, fellow worker. Anybody else? Going to ask where the wars are. You guys don't have the right.
What's your name? What's your name?
I'm literally a U.S. citizen.
According to reports, they dumped him off at a Walmart later in the day.
This guy right here, they let him out of the vehicle. They tortured him.
This guy?
This guy right here, yeah. Torture.
You okay, man? No, I'm not okay. Bro,
Well, congratulations. You have ICE agents terrorizing American citizens, including American citizens at work. In this case, we're talking about federal agents harassing and putting their hands on an American worker at a Target. And as you just heard, he was later dropped off at a Walmart. Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, in America, we used to not do things like this. Like if you were arrested, you were arrested, and we would take you down to the station, we'd book you, you'd be able to see our badge and see our name, and our faces wouldn't be covered. Now we have thugs in the streets that have masks on, no badges, no names. Now they're grabbing up US citizens because they ran out of people to grab, and Stephen Miller still wants them to terrorize people. Guys, you're gonna see two things in this story that are important. One is the tide has shifted and the American people now hate this. You'll see it in the podcasters that speak out. You'll see it in the polls. And the second thing we gotta talk about after Anna gives you the facts is, why are they doing this in the first place? This is not about immigration. So let's talk about that in a minute, but first the facts.
So the incident that you just saw took place last week on Thursday. Another Target worker was also apprehended. Now, the Department of Homeland Security addressed the case of this 17-year-old Target worker shown in the video at the start of the story, saying that this individual was arrested for assaulting federal law enforcement officers. Under 18 USC 111, assaulting, resisting, or impeding federal officers. Now, there were eyewitnesses there, and here is some eyewitness testimony from Bring Me the News. So per observers, agents were approaching Target and asked the workers outside whether they were citizens. The workers didn't answer and tried to go inside, at which point they were grabbed. So I'm seeing more and more of these stories of ICE agents like literally going door to door, knocking on people's doors to ask whether or not they're citizens, okay? So if you are an American citizen who was upset with the Biden administration's handling of immigration, you want our immigration laws to be enforced, I hear you. Did you sign up for this? Did you sign up for federal agents knocking on your door? Did you sign up for federal agents harassing you while you're working at your very likely minimum wage job? Okay, so once we get to the polling on the American sentiment toward ICE, all of these examples I'm giving you is gonna help explain the results of the polling. So according to reports, this is not an isolated incident. And if you've been paying close attention to this story, you'd know that. So some Target stores are actually pulling Latino workers off drive-up duty. That's when workers bring online orders directly to shoppers' cars in the parking lot. And that's according to what one anonymous Minneapolis store worker said. And they're doing this to keep their workers safe to the best of their ability, because they know that these ICE agents are going to racially profile. And if you look Latino, they're going to pull you aside and ask you questions. Over the weekend, protests took place outside of this Target where the ICE agents snatched the employees. And the protesters wanted Target to do a better job in protecting their workers. But according to a company spokesperson, that's a pretty difficult task because our parking lots and stores are unrestricted spaces that allow for the free flow of people in and out. Federal law enforcement agents aren't legally required to present a warrant to enter these areas. And I just want to understand something. So if you happen to have darker skin, you're an American citizen, but you don't have lily white skin, you don't have blonde hair, you don't have blue eyes, are you now expected to literally walk around with your birth certificate or with your naturalization documentation? Like, what is this? And Joe Rogan weighed in on it during a podcast with Senator Rand Paul. Rogan stated that Renee Good seemed out of her effing mind. However, he also harshly criticized the tactics that ICE has been deploying. Take a look.
After that woman was shot, I think, unfortunately, well, everything's unfortunate about it, right? But one of the real problems is now ICE are villains, and now people are looking at them like murderous military people that are on the streets of our city, and they're masked up, which is also a problem, right? Because if you get arrested by a cop, you're allowed to ask the cop, what is your name and badge number? And you could film that cop. If you get arrested by an ICE agent, you have no such right. They're wearing a mask. They don't have to tell you. That's a problem. That's a problem on our city streets, right? It's complicated, obviously, but it's also very ugly. To watch someone shoot a US citizen, especially a woman, in the face, it just looked horrific to me. I mean, when people say it's justifiable because the car hit him, it seemed like she was kind of turning the car away. It seemed like she was out of her mind to begin with. That lady seemed crazy, right? And didn't she move there specifically to get involved in all this?
Yeah, I don't know.
She didn't seem mentally healthy, but does that mean she should be shot in the head? Is there no other way to handle this?
So before I get to the polling jank, thoughts on everything I just presented?
Yeah. So look, I don't like them attacking this poor woman after she's been shot in the face 3 times. So no, she didn't look crazy to me. You might not agree with her. You might not have liked what she was doing or what she said, but no, not crazy. But overall though, Rogan is agreeing with us and the great majority of the country. And so there's a couple parts here. And to your point about, are you a citizen? That's the question they ask. And then Target then is now having people go and work in the back if they're Latinos, etc. Because why? Who carries around their passport? Look, I'm brown. I could look Latino. People could think I look Latino. Am I carrying my passport around or my naturalization papers? No, it's not a good idea to begin with. So now if you say, are you a US citizen, and you can't prove it, they're gonna arrest you. If you don't answer it, they're gonna arrest you. No matter what you say, if you look a certain way, they're gonna arrest you. And then since we're not doing anything by the law anymore, they're like, arrest you in the back of a van, and after we know we do God knows what to you, then we just dump you off the side of the street. No, that's not the American way. That's not rule of law. That's not law and order. And it's actually very refreshing to at least see Rogan go, no, we don't wear masks. That's not what we do. And guys, if you're not getting it by now, that leads to the second point I wanted to make, which is, why are they doing this? So yeah, there's the reason that they're giving, which is already absurd and ridiculous. Stephen Miller wants to catch Obama. Obama deported so many people, who's called a deporter in chief. And in order to catch him, they have to do 3,000 deportations a day. But when they do that, they've run out of all the criminals that they could find. They're onto the non-criminals, and they can't find enough non-criminals, partly because they live here. So they are in that house, they're living lives, they're at work. And the American people don't like to see what is a very ugly scene. That was exactly right. It looks very ugly when you have these stormtroopers going into the middle of American cities, agitating everyone. And then when someone goes, hey, I object, and they shoot him in the face. No, and Anna, what I'm super worried about is they're trying to get us used to the tyranny and to occupation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're not going to be able to get 3,000 people a day, and they're certainly not going to be able to get 3,000 people a day without massive oppression, massive number of mistakes, and going after US citizens, etc. We don't want this. Nobody wants this, and now the independent podcasters are clear. They don't want this. Dylan doesn't want it. Rogan doesn't want it. And the only reason why the Palantirs and the Stephen Millers of the world want it is because at the end of the day, we're all going to be in that same category soon, where the government is going to track all of us. If anybody objects to the government, look, there's masked men working for the government, ready to put their jackbooted, thuggish, knee on your neck. And it isn't just for African Americans or Latinos anymore. It's for all of us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I don't want to live in a country where you have militarized federal agents roaming the streets and harassing people like this, right? Especially as they're just going about their day or as they're at work. It's ridiculous. And we know that there's been a hiring spree for ICE. We know that the Trump administration has cut down on the training. And this isn't the kind of country that we're supposed to live in. This isn't what our government is supposed to stand for. And this is all translating into some interesting polling results because YouGov just released a poll over the weekend and they wanted to know how Americans are feeling about ICE. And let's take a look at the very first graphic here. So they asked, whether or not Americans support ICE, and here's what they found: 46% of Americans said they would support abolishing ICE. Okay, abolishing, 46%. 43% of Americans say they would oppose abolishing ICE. 12% of Americans say they're not so sure. But there are other results I want to get into. So this is the percentage of Americans who think the shooting of Renee Good was justified. So only 28% of Americans stated that the shooting of Renee Good was justified. 53% said it was not justified. So that's a majority. 18% were not sure. Let's look at the next one. So this kind of breaks things down based on party ID. So 53% of Americans overall said that the ICE officer who shot and killed Renee Good should face criminal charges. 30% said that he should not face criminal charges. 17% of Americans not so sure. But when you break it down by party affiliation, 90% of Democrats, 54% of independents, and sadly, just 14% of Republicans want the officer to face charges. 6% of Democrats, 23% of independents, and 63% of Republicans stated he should not face charges. So I've got some more. Let me just go to one more here. So according to the YouGov poll, which was conducted on January 7th, which was the day that Renee Good was killed, you'll see that 39% of Americans strongly or somewhat approve of how ICE is handling its job. 52% of Americans strongly or somewhat disapprove of how ICE is handling its job, and 10% are not sure. Cenk.
Yeah, no, boy, has ICE lost the country. Gonzo. I mean, if you told me a year ago, which probably some of you did tell me, that abolish ICE would have, no one said this, but I would have been shocked. I wouldn't have agreed if they had. I'm throwing myself under the bus there. That abolish ICE would have a plurality of Americans saying, yeah, let's just get rid of it altogether, right? I think that I would have thought if that happened, my God, has ICE done some terrible things. And that is what happened. ICE has done terrible thing after terrible thing after terrible thing, to the point where Americans are like, what did AOC say about abolishing ICE? Yeah, let's do that. Right. So look, at the end of the day, you still need an agency to get the folks who are undocumented but criminals, like some of the people they picked up in the first couple of days, like the pedophiles, etc. And by the way, I wish that Donald Trump would stop releasing some of the criminals, like the former president of Honduras was a person that they brought from outside the country into here. We convicted him for 45 years, one of the worst drug dealers in history. And Trump's like, oh, you're actually undocumented and a massive criminal, you're free to go. So that also ruined any credibility that they had, along with many other fraud cases where he pardoned people that they were concerned about crime. And so, yeah, the American people are sick of it. They don't want this kind of ugliness in the streets. And are they saying this is permanent and we're all just gonna have to get used to militarized guys in the streets with no identification and mass? And how many of them are real? How many of them are fake? And we've done the many stories about the fake ones that are kidnapping people, and mainly women. Mainly Latino women, but not exclusively Latino women, telling women to get into vans because that they're quote unquote ICE. No, this sucks. And basically the American people are saying, change it, change it. And Anna, it was a stunning failure on Trump's part to have done the initial closing of the border, get rid of the criminals. He was enormously popular at that point on the topic of immigration. And now independents by 2-1 have said not only have they turned against him on immigration, but they're saying we should maybe abolish the department that's executing his policies on immigration. And that is a stunning development. Like the size of that defeat is stunning.
Yeah, it's stunning. It turns out that Americans don't want to see militarized federal agents roaming the streets and harassing people. Wow, shocker.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.